welcome back to another video, guys. Another upload brought to you by your one and only literary Pharaoh. There's a concept out there. If you guys didn't know it, it's about good and evil. It's about God and the devil. And the ironic thing about this dual construct of good and evil and God and the devil is the fact that the same creator, your same creator, is your same God, and your creator is also your devil. You say, how can that be? Well, if you look through the biblical text, since you guys like to always use the Bible as your reference for everything, even though the Bible is a plagiarized text that takes 99.9% of its contents from older manuscripts and things that were written in Sumerian tablets and certain oral traditions that were embedded deeply inside other older cultures that existed before the cultures that they talk about in the Bible. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. I'm not here to talk about that. But let's say you want to use the Bible as your reference. Well, have you ever considered an all benevolent being, committing to a wager with a devil? Remember the story of Job? Think about it. Job is minding his own business, and then allegedly the devil, the bad guy, because you guys love to use the Bible as your reference, he goes to God and says the only reason why Job worships you is because you give him everything. You take care of him, and he has resources, and he only worships you and reveres you because of what you provide for him. But I bet if you take everything away from him and you cause him so much trauma, and you just do whatever you want to him, or if you allow me to harass him to a degree where he is close to committing suicide, because that's what actually happens. It doesn't tell you that in the Bible. If you read other tales and other manuscripts, and not other manuscripts that are linked to the Bible, but if you just read other narratives, other books, okay, that has its origins in the Sumerian tablets, you'll see that he almost wanted to kill himself because he lost everything. He got sick. He had boils in his skin. I mean, they tortured him. Now you may tell yourself, well, that's not a benevolent being. A benevolent being wouldn't do a deal with the devil. You wouldn't. Why would you? Think about it for a second. This all-knowing God, the ultimate creator of the universe. So that means you would have to believe that this God created the devil, because after all, God created everything, right? He created all the angels. He created the stars. He created the moon. He created the earth. He created everything. He created, right? That's the narrative. So that means that he also created the devil. So the devil that's responsible for all the evil in the world, you can blame that on your God. If you want to keep to that narrative, if you want to stick to the narrative that your God is the one that created everything, then he's also responsible for creating the devil. Not only does he create the devil, he commits to actually engage in a wager, some kind of bet with the devil. How does that make any sense? Now, the logical conclusion that you should be led to is to say, okay, maybe these beings aren't gods. Maybe these beings are just extraterrestrial beings that are posing as gods, using highly technological advanced equipment to act like they're gods because they're able to do things that we as Homo sapiens can't understand with our own intellect, because they are otherworldly. They are billions of years intellectually past us. They've surpassed us by billions of years in terms of intellect. So they're much, much more advanced than us in terms of the brain, in terms of the thinking, in terms of their spiritual essence. They're much more advanced than us. So these beings are nothing but created beings that bleed, okay? They're not supernatural. See, what you don't understand with science and technology can be deemed as supernatural, because in your ignorance, you think that everything is supernatural. Like, for instance, when it rained, people thought that it was God creating rain, but it's not really God creating rain. It's extraterrestrials using natural phenomena, using the laws of physics, and using their technology, mingling their technology with the natural occurrences of nature, and using the scientific aspects to manipulate an end goal that they want to achieve. But don't think that it's devoid of technology. Technology is being infused in everything that they do. Okay, so And if you don't understand the technology, then you're left to just wallow in your ignorance and come out with conclusions that it's a supernatural phenomenon, that God had to do it. God didn't do anything. There are more beings on this planet and in the universe. Don't think that Earth is just limited to just humans. There are hybrid humanoid beings that exist among us. There are extraterrestrials that exist among us. They walk around like us, but they're not us, because they can infuse their consciousness inside a human avatar. A human avatar is the exoskeleton. What you see right now on this screen, this is just an avatar. The essence of me is my soul and my spirit. My physical attributes, my phenotype, or my skin tone, my genetics, my DNA, those are just symbols of my essence. Okay? It doesn't define who I am. This is nothing but the physical portrait of something that's internally concealed. You cannot see the soul. But if you want to see the soul, you can see the soul manifest itself in the physical by seeing my exoskeleton. So you can't look at a human being and say, well, we all look the same, so we're all humans. You don't know that, because you don't know what that person is. You don't know what that person has residing within their exoskeleton, in their shell, their outer shell. It's like if you go to a store and you purchase grapes. Just because you purchase a grape and it looks like a grape on the outside doesn't necessarily mean it's a grape. Because if it doesn't have seeds in it, how can it really be the real fruit? All grapes are not made equal. All humans aren't made equal. Don't be an idiot. Those extraterrestrial beings were not God or gods. They were little g gods that posed to be as gods, using their technological advancements and manipulation to manipulate us. They created us. So indeed, our creators are gods and devils. You say, how can that be? Well, this goes back to what I've always said, talked about the law of duality. There's no being that does good all the time. And it depends on perspective. It depends also on your vantage point. Where do you stand? What's your position on the action that's being done? What's the entity's motive? We all have motives. There's no human being on earth that does good all the time, because sometimes you have to cut corners. And some of the things could be arbitrary. Some of the things could be relative to your situation. And there's certain things that are morally absolute, and there's certain things that are morally, in the gray, where you can't really make a complete judgment on if it's totally good or evil. It just depends on who's receiving the action and who's committing the action. It just depends. What position do you stand in, and what position do you stand on at the onset of the action? I always give the stupid analogy of a man hunting for food. The man hunting for food is doing the right thing by his family, but that animal that's getting hunted is going to view the hunter as the evil person, because the hunter is trying to take that animal's life. The animal in that situation, according to its position at the onset of the action, deems the hunter as the evil one, because the hunter is trying to take its life. So it just depends. We're collateral damage. Stop this nonsense about, you always hear these silly commercials coming on talking about, well, the one thing clever that the devil did is to convince the world that the devil doesn't exist. The concept of a devil exists, but this idea that there's one devil that's making everything evil, it's nonsense. The progenitors of this system that we live in, when I say progenitors, I mean the ones that started it, the ones that created us, not from scratch. They used hominid DNA because there were already beings on this planet. And Anunnaki beings created us. They genetically modified us, infusing their divine genetics in us. So we're kind of part alien, part human, which is why we are in a certain paradox, because we're like half animal, half divinity. That's why it's hard for us to ascend spiritually, and we're so bound by the laws of physics in this third dimensional realm. And they use those elements of the third dimensional realm to entrap us, to keep us encapsulated and manipulate us. So we're so focused on what we can't see, not focusing on what we cannot see. It's hard for us to meditate. We're carnal minded. That's where you get the term carnal, fleshy. We are in haste we are hastily attracted to things that soothe the flesh, food, sexual pleasures, pornography, drugs. We're always getting something for the outside, never doing anything for the inside. We're chemically dependent upon things to stimulate us rather than using our internal faculties, or rather than using the things that we're already made of to heal ourselves. We have healing properties within our DNA construct. You know that? Well, how do you think when you cut yourself, your body heals itself? If your body can heal itself, you have the ability to heal yourself. If your body, without your volition, without your injunction, okay, without your interruption or your intervening, your body alone, all right, without you even coming in to even interrupt the process, heals itself. So you alone have the power to heal yourself. If you think you want to be healed, you can be healed. And if you stop eating rotten foods and cancerous foods that are replete with carcinogens, you can heal yourself. Because if you heal the mind is now able to make better decisions. And when you make better decisions, it only does you well, because when you're making better decisions on what I'm going to put in my mouth and what I'm not going to put in my mouth, those are the things that help you live longer. Not this idea that I'm going to pray over my food and pray over my food for what? No one's listening to your prayers. You are your own God. You are your own devil. Everyone walking, everyone that exists is a God and a devil, symbolically speaking. Because you have the God gene to create your own reality based upon your perceptions. And you can also be a devil by functioning consistently on a low vibrational output, where you're consistently emitting low frequencies, anger, jealousy, hate, bitterness, discontentment, unrest, being uncivil, not respecting nature, not being one with nature, not being reflective, lacking retrospection. All those things put you in a state lower than your pristine state. So that's what makes you a god or a devil, because you have the power to uplift and you also have the power to downgrade. It's not some god in the sky that's going to do it. You guys are idiots. Think about that. A god, a creator of the universe, commits to engage in a deal with the devil to see if Job worships God because he really loves God, or does he worship God because of the things that God gives him. They kill this man's children. They destroy his home. They put diseases on him. The man is put in such an he's in a dark place, so much so that he's contemplating killing himself, committing suicide. And then at the end, it's proven that this Job does love God, not just because of the things that God gives him. And this God in the Bible that they're talking about is nothing but an extraterrestrial being. They're brothers. That's why when I was younger, I used to hear things that sounded fringe. In my Bible believing days, in my ignorance, I would hear people often say that the God and the devil, that Jesus and the devil, or God and the devil were brothers. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. How are they brothers? I thought God created everything. So because I was taught that God created everything, I didn't have the idea to even consider that maybe these are extraterrestrial beings that are siblings. It's a sibling rivalry. That's why, if you go back to the Sumerian tablets, it always talks about Enki and Enlil. Now, whether that's their real names or not, but they're two brothers. One is Enki, one is Enlil. Enlil was the god of Eden. God, that's the Yahweh God, the ones that you are, Jehovah, God, Jesus. That's the one you guys worship every day. The one that wanted to keep enlightenment away from Adam and Eve, the one that didn't want Adam and Eve to know who they really were, the one that wanted to create a slave race. That's why in the biblical narratives, when you go to the New Testament, it's always talking about obey your master like you obey God. That's a concept that was originated by your God, by your fake wannabe God that poses like a God, your imposter God. That's how he started. He created slaves. So it would make sense that he would have a system, or have a religious system that's predicated on having slaves and masters. There's no slave or master. No one's your master. Even them creating us, they created us haphazardly. It wasn't from a passionate state. They created an abomination we were not supposed to be. Enlil was trying to make sure of that, which is why he continued to use calamities and catastrophes to try to wipe out the human race. The story about the flood is a story about Enlil trying to wipe out the human race. Of course, Enki, the older brother, swoops in and he's like, oh no. I'm gonna preserve humanity. It's not the same God doing everything. That's why some of the Bible stories don't make sense to you. And even when I was younger, I couldn't connect the dots. I'm like, okay, why is this God wanting to destroy the whole world or destroy the human population, but he's preserving a handful of people? And you would think, the way the biblical narrative is written, you would think that this God has a purpose. He wants to wipe out the human race, but he wants to preserve a few. What's so special about this few? No. The God wanted to wipe out everybody. The other one that's posing to be a God as well comes in to try to save the day. Because the serpent, the one that they consider to be, the one that they call Satan or Satan, the snake in the garden is actually Enki, the brother. He's the one that gets the bad rap, but he's not really totally evil, but he's not totally good either. He was coming into the garden to enlighten Adamu and Tiamat, Adam and Eve. That's their real names, Adamu and Tiamat. He was coming in there to enlighten them, to say, hey, you guys are more than just slaves. You guys have the divine spark in you. We are cosmic kin. We're not your gods, really. We created y'all. He started to teach them things. That's why the Bible says, the knowledge of good and evil. What's so bad about learning about good and evil? So your God that you serve doesn't want you to be knowledgeable. He wants you to be ignorant. He wants you to walk around blind and just listen to him and follow your heart. Don't use your brain. Well, unfortunately, they didn't think about that when they were creating us. And Lil didn't think about that when they were creating us. No, you gave us a little bit of your divinity. So we have the ability to think, and we're just as smart as you guys. Not as smart in terms of level smart, but we can apply our senses in terms of using it to navigate the ecosystem that we're currently in. So we have the sense. If someone gives us the knowledge, we can absorb it. We can be receptive to the knowledge that we are receiving. That's plain and simple. We can learn. We're like sponges. We're like human computers. We're able to do that. And Lil didn't want that. He's like, hey, who told you were naked? Who told you this? You're supposed to be dumb, deaf, and blind and only listen to me. You guys think that that's a God? You guys are idiots. Those gods that pose to be as gods, little g gods, have a creator. They even have to submit or succumb to the law of the universe. Do you know that if you read the Sumerian tablets, do you know that it talks about how some of the things that Enlil did was forbidden, and then he was cast away to some remote place for punishment? So if this being is a god, how is a god being punished? How is the creator of the universe being punished? That should let you know that these beings were not creators. They're imposters. I'm telling you right now, in this third dimensional realm that we live in, this reality, this theatric, reality that we live in is a theatrical play, if you ask me. This reality that we live in, to be totally frank and honest with you, there's nothing true that comes from this system. It's all manipulation. The books that you read are all manipulated. Even the Sumerian tablets, I'm not saying that everything in there is factual, but what I can tell you is that it's more reliable than what the Bible is telling you. How do I know that, and why do I say that? Well, how do I know that that book is not inspired by God? What if it was inspired by God? It wouldn't have literally the same words of the Sumerian tablets in it. And the only thing that they did was change a couple of names. And then the Sumerian tablets outdate the Bible by thousands of years. Then the Bible demonizes Egypt and the pyramids, when in actuality, there's nothing demonic about the pyramids. There's nothing demonic about the culture of Egypt. This was just a sibling rivalry. Do you know that Marduk is the son of Enki? Marduk and Enlil are like at odds with one another. So basically, this is the whole story in a nutshell. You have a sibling rivalry. They created some beings, all right? They're using human beings as tools, as chess pieces, or chess pieces on a chessboard to gain land. They have tribes that they lead, either by them directly or they're using a middleman to do it. That's why you hear in the Bible God telling David to go here and kill this and slaughter animals and kill children and take the women. Like, what kind of God advises that? And you guys will still go to church and think that this is like, it doesn't make any sense. And I know the Jesus narrative sounds good and they soften it up. You know, there's no such thing as an Old and New Testament. Just realistically speaking, there's no such thing as an Old and a New. It's just a testament. You shouldn't divide. There's no, if God is immutable, if God cannot change, all right, that's what immutable means. It means you cannot change. If God cannot change, why is he slaughtering and committing mass genocide in the Old Testament, but all of a sudden he turns to Barney in the New Testament where he's like, turn the other cheek? And I know you guys always have explanations for these things, but they don't make sense. Don't look at the commentaries of your Bible. Don't listen to your preacher and they preach it away and psycho-babble and psychoanalyze it. It doesn't make any sense. If the Creator never changes and he's always the same, why aren't you being consistent and committing to genocide in the New Testament? Why not wipe out the Jews that were allegedly, you know, blamed as the ones who put Christ on the cross? Why not just keep killing? Why not? Why change? Because it's not the same. It's a contradiction, folks. One begins as a mass murderer, and it's not just one God. They're gods, plural. These are extraterrestrial beings and posing to be gods. You don't have to believe me, guys. Just do your own research. It makes sense. Some of the actions by this alleged God doesn't make sense. Like, he changes his mind. At one point, he wanted to do something. I think he wanted to wipe out something. Then he kind of, okay, I won't do it because Moses talked him out of it. Like, really? That's another being. That's just another being. Yes, they're more advanced than us because of the technology. We don't have the technology. If I told you let's say in the 1500s, somebody was walking around with a cellular phone and they were communicating with somebody that was millions of miles away, we would look at that person like, oh my God, this person has the power to talk to people that are far. What is this? If you're not exposed to certain types of tech and you don't even understand how technology even works in the first place, you are going to be at awe. You are going to marvel at the idea that someone can communicate with somebody that's far away. And not only communicate, you can see them. You can get on FaceTime and look at the person. But because we see that every day in our reality, if you see somebody on FaceTime, it's not a big deal because we understand how it works from a nominal perspective, from a novice. Like, I'm not saying that we know how technology works in terms of the intricacies of it, but we see it enough and we understand what that means. It's just nothing but radio wave technology, frequencies, using technology in the internet, the web, you know. And that's how people connect. They get connected through that. That's what we know from the surface. We understand how that works. We're not in awe. If I see somebody on the cell phone doing FaceTime with somebody in a different country, I'm not, oh my God, how do you do that? Like, because we see it. It's common. You got to understand, when human beings were initially created, they didn't have all those things at all. Now, we have more technology today, but do you know that those extraterrestrial beings still have technologies that are far more advanced than what we have today? And as a matter of fact, that's what they're using to oppress the human race. They're working with our governments. They're working with these secret societies. And what they're doing is that they are giving governments, and especially America, they're giving us technologies in order to give up certain things. Because technology today is the thing that's being used. Technology today is what's being used to control weather. You don't have to believe me. Just do your own research. Have you heard of ionosphere heaters? Have you heard of HAARP? Have you heard of Have you heard of what do you call that thing that they use? Chemtrails, when they're spraying nanoparticulates mingled in with radio wave technology to manipulate air masses. Okay, that's all technology, folks. When you have the weather shifting radically, that's technology. Weather's supposed to have a subtle changing, not radical shifting. All right, let me get my boy into school. I'll be right back.